Welcome, everyone, to another edition of The Teams ahead of our clash against the Roos, round 21, 1:40 p.m. Sunday. As always, a shout out to our sponsors, Southside Pizza down in Moorabbin. Before we get stuck into the game and I bring in the teams, I definitely need to talk about that win on Sunday. What a win, a record-breaking, historical win, insane. I thought we'd start by each of us just explaining where we were when that 46-point come from behind victory occurred. And if you can kick us off by going through your situation, how it all unfolded, Ollie and Evan. Where were you? Were you live? Were you watching on TV? Were you somewhere else? Were you getting live scores on your phone? What was the situation? How did it all pan out for you?
Mine's a sad story, unfortunately. I couldn't go to the game, which is fine. I was watching on TV. We're going crazy in the last quarter, sort of. I'm just keeping a lid on it for quite a while.
Mm.
And then suddenly Nasiah decides to explode. He takes a mark inside 50 to have a shot after the siren. Now, I'm in the room with, it's not just me. So I've got my girlfriend, who's a St Kilda supporter as well, and my dad, who's a Collingwood supporter, and my mum, who usually doesn't sit down and watch footy, but she was sitting down for this part. And I got up to turn the volume up to hear the end of it, and I accidentally clicked Netflix, and I missed the goal live.
Oh
no!
Yeah. So I've been back and watched it since, obviously, but the TV froze, so we couldn't get back to KO in time, and missed it completely.
Oh, that's so St Kilda.
And I didn't just ruin it for myself, but ruined it for 3 other people who were watching and into it.
Oh, that's gold.
Hanger of the week.
Yeah.
There.
Yes.
Yeah. One of that down.
Yeah. Evan, is your story a bit nicer?
Well, I wish I'd seen it live as well, but no, I was on a 4-hour road trip at the time, and I am glad that I didn't have it on the radio, because there's no way I wouldn't have crashed that car. Like, I would have been off the road. So I finished the trip, got home, looked at my phone and saw half a dozen messages going, "There's no way. That was incredible. What's going on?" So I could infer from there, but I watched back the game and went, I could never have anticipated that last quarter. So a phenomenal watch. It's been rewatched countless times. I've watched every single footy show's clip combination of all the broadcasts. That'll be one to remember.
Yes, that was definitely a lot of fun, going back and listening to all the different commentary. It was so exciting, but it was quite funny from my perspective, because, I have to plan out weeks in advance what games I can get to, and I normally go with mum and my son. So we weighed up whether to go to the Melbourne game or the Roos game, which is this week. And we decided, well, stupidly, for some reason, I thought we were playing at the G like all week. So I was like to mum, like, oh, let's just go to the Roos game, because it's, it's better than going to the G. Like, it's just easier, blah, 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 for us anyway. Anyway, it gets to like closer to the game, and I'm like, the game's at Marvel, but we'd already picked the Roos. But ironically, like, because I normally have to leave at 3/4 time, so I would have had to leave at 3/4 time, and we would have got back to the train, and mum, like, sort of periodically would have checked the scores, and I just would have thought she was joking. So, yeah, in a way, I'm glad that I didn't go, because I would have had to leave at 3/4 time. But that whole game, to be honest, I was pretty feral. I was pretty upset at the Saints. Like, just after having these honourable losses, I was really gutted at how we turned up. And, I was like, this is so typical, just haven't shown up. So, like, we've been so good, and now we're going to turn up and play like crap against the Ds. And I was just really ticked off. We got to 3/4 time, and I was like to mum, I can't believe I have to sit through another quarter of this. This has just been miserable. And then, so Dad was over as well, and we kicked the first sort of 3-4 goals, and I was just like, oh, typical Saints, go and put in the effort now, too little, too late. And Dad's like, no, you're in this. And I was like, oh, come on, he's an Essendon supporter. So I was like, oh, yeah, okay, Dad. And then he went off to get pizza, and then we've kicked like another 3 goals. He walks back in, like, with the pizza like 20 minutes later, whatever, 10 minutes, whatever it was. And like he sort of jokingly comes in looking at the scores. He's like, "Sir, how you going?" And then he's like, "What the hell?" So it was good. And then like we're just going to get the pizza. So I'm like watching, trying to get my slice. And that's when Naz comes in with his specky. And I was just like, that was it. Like I tried to play it cool up until then, being like, nah, they're not getting my hopes up. Like we're not. It was like my brain just didn't want me to go there, so I didn't want to have the heartbreak.
Yep.
But when Naz took that screamer, that was it. I was off cheering, like, oh, like that was just what a moment, what a man. I just think we just need to do whatever to get the guy to sign. I think they need to make a Space Jam 3. He can star. Nicknamed him Flash because he's the everywhere man. Like literally, like everywhere I looked, he was there. So, yep, I'm calling him the Flash. Yeah, just so exciting. And I feel like we could spend the hour just talking about that last quarter.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we won't. And I will bring up the teams. But yeah, feel free in the comments to add your experience. I'm sure many of you were actually at the game witnessing it. Maybe you left at 3/4 time. Maybe you stuck fat and witnessed that record-breaking, amazing feeling. So very envious of everyone who was there live. But yeah, like I said, I would have left at 3/4 time and not even for the score, just that's what I tend to do with my son who can't make it through a whole game at the moment. So, but I'm going to go this weekend. So fingers crossed we don't do a typical St Kilda, and you all people know what I mean. So let's bring up these teams once again, an extended bench. But first off, I'll just bring in our ins. No outs. So, as I said, extended bench. And then we'll also look at the Roos quickly as well, who I guess my main thing I've noticed there is that Nick Larkey's back. And, yeah, sort of not too much else of interest for me, but I think we'll focus more on our ends. And if you think there will be any changes coming out of that epic victory.
Yeah, I'm pretty doubtful there'll be. Oh, sorry, you go.
No, you go. No, you go.
Yeah.
You're on.
I don't reckon there'll be any changes there for two reasons. One, there's the classic phrase that you start the next game how you ended the previous one. So hopefully we can keep that form moving along. And I don't see us bringing Heath back in as much as I'd kind of be interested in that. Just because I believe they're still missing Sherry for a moment as well. So they're already very short on rucks, and Marshall can probably do the job there, even with they've got a bit of height coming back in, but not much.
Yeah, and like there's an argument that bringing Heath in is a good idea because they're so short, but I don't know, I suppose the way we want to play the game is potentially not likened to the way that Heath might, the sort of, I suppose his attributes and what he'd bring to the game. Not that I'm like you, I'm not against bringing him back in. I think depending on Collard, we might be forced into a change there. He wasn't really having an impact on the game anyway, so I'm not sure how much that contributes to the decision. Aside from that, Burns didn't have much going for him. Might just have been one of those games. And Ari also spent the last 16 minutes on the bench, along with McRae, which I wouldn't read too much into McRae being on the bench. Taru 12 minutes and Burns 9 minutes as well. So I know it was a close game. We had momentum, so you don't necessarily want to change a lot of that up. But 16 minutes is pretty much half of the quarter. I think it went 32, 33 minutes. So that's probably not a good sign for Ari's spot. It's hard to say what they'll do because none of those changes are really like for like unless you drop Burns. So it'll be interesting come 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree, and I can't help get a little distracted by all the funny comments, especially Guy talking about him commentating for a mate, so that's pretty funny. And then Daryl falling off the couch, is funny too. And then yes, Jan shaking. Yeah, I couldn't believe like that that last 8 seconds, I just feel like we need to keep reliving it. Like that was just, I feel like I couldn't have been scripted better in a movie. It just was like like a Mighty Ducks comeback, and yeah, you just couldn't have scripted it any better. Like all that happened. And then I do have to shout out one meme I saw during the week was only the demons don't understand 666. So I thought that was pretty funny. But back to the game. I'll probably keep doing this for the whole segment tonight. Everyone else has been able to discuss that amazing moment, and I know people will carry on and say like, well, we're carrying on and it was a game that meant nothing, rah rah rah. But no, I'm hoping that this really just, this is the moment where we get that belief and anything's possible. So I sort of tend to agree that there's no obvious change other than the fact that I'd like to see Garcia come back in, and someone needs to make way. Like I just really love what he was doing before he got injured, and whether that is Collard or Burns, I think he does need to come in somehow, because I think he just needs to get as many games under his belt as possible. And I sort of agree regarding Heath. If we weren't going to play him against Melbourne, I don't see us playing him against the Roos, especially without Zeri with his suspension. So yeah, apart from that, I don't think anything else will happen, and it's really unfortunate for the guy who does have to make way. I don't know, maybe we wait an extra week, just so everyone gets to stay in the team after that. But it is interesting noting, I was wondering sort of where Ari was. And then interesting with McRae, because I actually thought for the first 3 quarters, he was about the only one who could hold his head high. I thought he was actually having a pretty okay game. So maybe he deserved a break in the last quarter. I don't know. But it worked out really well, because as much as he was having an okay game, our midfield was the difference in the last quarter. I mean, everyone did their part, but to me, it was the midfield who really stood up. And on that, I feel like we can discuss the midfield and how you thought they went. Obviously, it was not a game of 2 halves, but a game of 3 quarters and 1. It was like watching 2 completely different games. So, what was sort of your take on the midfield? My sort of first thought is that Steele was really quiet after having a really solid month of footy, so not really sure what was going on with him. But yeah, aside from that, what was your, or maybe you want to elaborate on that, but what was your take with the midfield on the weekend?
I reckon you guys would have spoken about it last week as well, but I don't know why we didn't experiment with Naz in the midfield earlier. Like, it's just, he's been a revelation, even though we haven't won both games that he's played full-time midfield. Actually, did he play midfield the week before the Geelong game? Yeah. I can't remember. He did, yeah. Okay, so even though we've only won one out of those 3, still, the impact is so higher than even, your footy pundits on social media and TV and radio would have thought. Like, he's gone from being in contention for All-Australian to, is he a top 5 player? That's the conversation that's shifted since he's gone into the midfield. And considering his still relatively slight build, he's still hitting packs and bursting through. It doesn't seem like it phases him, which is great. And the other one I wanted to speak about was Hugh Boxall, because I thought that he did a really good job when he came on. It was just before halftime, I think, that he came on. Ended up with 15 touches, 3 tackles, and I think he was in a few of those chains in the last quarter, especially at the start of the last quarter. Just a little handball. That's all it was, but he was still a part of those chains, and that gives him that experience, especially considering he's one of the guys that has been in and out of the side, been the sub a whole bunch. That sort of experience is invaluable. So if he can hold the spot, he'll become a great inside mid for us. I think he needs to clean up his disposal. He's kicking a little bit, but he's played like 6 or 7 games, so that's going to come.
Yeah, I think they're 2 really important ones to say. Particularly, Boxall was just popping up everywhere. They said it a couple of times in the commentary. He's just everywhere. But Naz, of course, the key word there just being impact. Like, if you compare Naz and Steele in there, the difference in impact for me is just night and day. Because while Steele brings infinite amounts of pressure, you don't see that on the scoreboard. Whereas Naz was just touch after touch ending up on that scoreboard there. To bring it back to the last, 90 seconds, I was in raptures when he got the mark and kicked the goal. I was even happier when I saw that with 8 seconds left, they put the centre bounce was Max Hall, Windy, and Naz. They didn't go back to the old heads. They went, no, you guys have earned it. Hall, I believe, had the entire quarter, had every centre bounce, which I love having him in the middle there. When Max Hall gets the ball, we kick a goal, which doesn't quite rhyme, but close enough.
I wasn't sure if you're going for the rhyme or not.
I was trying. But really glad we rewarded them, and they made the most of it in spades, with that last play. So obviously we're looking past the first 3 quarters a bit, but there's a big difference between that new lot in the midfield and maybe some of our senior heads there, and it was obvious.
Yeah, which is just so exciting to see that pay off the way it did. And I've come up with another nickname for Max, Midas Hall, because everything he touches turns to gold. Nice. Every time he gets the ball, it's just something good happens. So, yeah, the more he gets it, the better. And he has just re-signed, so that's really exciting. Really happy about that, and what a season he's had to date. And, I'm glad you mentioned Boxall, because he was just really composed, like no signs of panicking, just sort of got the job done. And another one who had, I thought, his disposal was pretty good considering. Naz just impressed me so much, just wanting to be the match winner. Like the way he demanded the footy was just clutch. Like he had ice in his veins, like he, setting up that play. And then even like every player had their moments. Marshall had a pretty quiet, sort of lowered his colours in a way for 3 quarters. And then to nail that kick, I think that's so underrated, like especially as a ruckman, to just have the confidence to be like, yep, got it. And to be fair, Naz probably made it look better than it was. Like if that had been another player, not sure he gets there, but Naz was just like, I got this, like winning this game, like give me the ball. Like that was just so impressive. I even had people who are not Saints supporters just be like, that's insane. Like, yeah, just blown away. So I was really hoping this week that we'd announce that he'd re-sign, leading into like the last home game of the season. Keep getting my hopes up, and it's just not coming. Just trying to be patient, but I'm not a patient person. But it's been quite funny, like listening to everyone else sort of carrying on the same way, and I know I'm not alone. Just waking up every day, every time you get a Saints alert on your phone, you're like, So Naz, you're killing us. I don't want to put any pressure on you, Naz, but you're going to break like 60,000 hearts if you don't sign with us. Like, no pressure, but do you realise? Anyway, won't carry on too long. I do it every week, just hoping he bloody puts pen to paper. We'll move on to the forward line, and I mean, you could probably talk about Naz again, because there he was in the forward line winning us the game. But real big shout out to Cooper Sharman as well. He kicked 2 really crucial goals. That goal from outside 50 to just play on was clutch as well. Like that really had me like, I don't want to believe, but that was pretty special. But
it's the one that gave us hope.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because even when Brad Hill kicked his, I was happy for him, but I was also like great goal, but too little, too late. Like, but that was actually probably what kickstarted the comeback. So, and I think a bit of a shout out to Brad Hill, because I think he had a better game in my eyes. I thought he had some really good moments, and I don't know if you had that as well. Like there was this moment in the last quarter where he was running for that loose ball again, and I was sort of having deja vu from the last time that happened, but he was really composed and he just got the ball cleanly, and I just felt like even he was in a marking contest, didn't quite take the mark, but he was gutsy, went back with it, and then Caminiti cleaned it up, but he would have cleaned it up anyway. Like, so I just thought he really sort of held his own, and all the players stood up in the last. But, how did you sort of feel like the forward line gelled? Maybe we want to just talk about the last quarter, and I guess going into the Roos game as well. I didn't really touch on the Roos midfield too much, but we can do that in the op overview.
Yeah, the forward line, I feel it was an odd decision to move Hammer up there at the start of the game. there's something to be said for consistency, and he's been playing well in the back line. So I guess that we made a few changes over the last couple of weeks with Taru and Shoei, but it was an odd one for me. I'm glad we made the switch early, like relatively early, and that both players were able to reset their heads and get back into the game that they were ready for there. It's hard to say because we scored so quickly and they were very out of the blue goals. So it's tough to get a read on how they fully performed. I've been looking at the list and how we can get Garcia into the squad. And this is a bit of tinfoil hat, but Jack Steele, put him in the forward line, rotate far less time in the midfield because we've got Hall, Windy, Garcia, and Naz running through there. And that's probably why Collard or a Jones comes out, sort of thing, because Steele is, a 50-50 midfielder rather than attending, 80% of centre bounces. So he kicked the goal. It was a good contested mark, even if it fell in his lap. But that would be my setup for the forward line and the only change I'd make.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I like the Steele forward. I think he's had a good impact while being in the midfield in the last few years. So, not so much this year, but in the last few, bobbing up for a goal here and there, usually sort of 30 to 45 meters out, where he's not playing as a forward, but someone's just able to chip it to the side. And on, I don't know if you mentioned Zach Jones, but I think if you didn't mention him, then I'm thinking I'm just going off my rocker a bit. But
maybe you read the comment.
Yeah, maybe I might have done that, and it was because when we were talking about Naz and the last centre bounce, I noticed Zach Jones in the forward line. He kind of seemed like he just played his role, and it's like, okay, now Garcia is coming back into the side, so that's what we need you for. We just needed him to fill the gap that Garcia left. More forward line related, I think that Higgins looks a lot more dangerous when we can hit him up on those short little 25-meter leads. The kick is usually about 25, 30 meters, just a short sort of thing where he doesn't have to take it over his head. He can take it out in front or on his chest because, yeah, he's dangerous on the ground. But when someone's onto him, like they have been in the middle part of the season, he struggles. So if we can get him those little shots from, it doesn't have to be, directly in front sort of thing, because he can snap it around his body, which we know he does a little too much sometimes. But he hit drop punts this week, and it was really good to see because he was hitting them from angles a little bit further out. He looks like he's worked on it a lot, which is great considering he had such a good first half of the season. And he's also beaten his career high goals in the season. There's still 4 games to go, so that's great. He could get to 50 if he's in good form. We've apparently got the easiest run home according to the data, so make of that what you will. And I'd like to see Mason Wood roll forward a little bit more. I feel like it's just better at this point that we give other guys opportunities on the wing. And we know Mason Wood's a talented forward because that's where he played at North Melbourne. And he's had good games for us playing forward when he's had to plug holes. He's kicked 4, he's kicked 3, like quite a few times. So, great mark, reasonably accurate kick for goal most of the time. So, when we're playing a game like this where we might decide to leave Heath out, I think Mason Wood swinging forward is a good, not a hole plugger, but, it's a good rotation to have another tall guy who can play up the ground and then drop forward when we need him.
Yeah, I really like both of your comments there with Steele playing forward. I think that's a really good one, Evan, because it might even prolong his career a little bit as well if he can sort of rest up forward a little bit more. It's not as hard on his body, and we all know he's suffered a fair amount of injuries, and I dare say there's more that we don't know behind the scenes that's gone on with Steele. Probably even this year. So, yeah, I really like that he can go forward because he is quite strong. He's capable of winning a marking contest one-on-one, and I think he's been real clutch this year as well, when we haven't really always had a reliable set shot. I think that, apart from last week when he struggled to make the distance, more often than not, he converts the goal. And I was really happy that he slotted what looked like a relatively easy set shot, but given the circumstance, to go back and slot that was a captain's goal. So good on him. And then, I did want to touch on Wood, because I thought he was crucial in the last quarter. He had a lot of key moments, and I think as a leader as well, he was so important, and had some really key moments and key disposals. And while Wood sort of says that his kick into Naz wasn't great, I still think, he had to be in the position to get the ball and get it forward like he did. And I still think he did really well getting it in as fast as he did. And Naz sort of finished it off. So, especially after Wood had been fairly quiet the last few weeks, to come out like that and play the way he did, obviously, particularly in the last quarter, good on him. And I did also just want to touch on Tauru. Obviously, he started back but then moved forward, kicked his first goal, which was lovely. He's had a couple of chances that he hasn't quite nailed, but that one was very nice to hit the scoreboard. It's funny at the time because, again, I was like, oh, now he kicks his first goal when, we're getting creamed. But it counted in the end, got us the 4 points. So do you think his career is as a forward, or would you rather persist with him in the back line, or are you happy to sort of just throw him about and sort of see, like, kind of like we did with Caminiti? Or, where do you feel like his best fit is?
It's a good question. Like, he has merit playing on both sides of the ball, because we know he's great in the contest. He flies for marks, spoils the ball really well. But the same principle can be applied playing as a forward. He can fly for marks and crash packs. So, yeah, I really don't know. It's one that stumped me a little bit, because I'd like to see him play both forward and defense. But I feel like for now, we need to start him in defense. We can swing him forward like we did last week, but based on our current structure, it's hard to tell what's going to happen in the future, who's going to come into the team from other clubs, who we're going to draft and develop. So for now, I'd say defender and swing forward if need be.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for the most part. I think it's not a perfect comparison, but his gameplay almost reminds me a bit of Josh Weddle at the Hawks. And Weddle's probably a bit more skilled in the midfield as well, but that ability to move from the forward and back like that, if he can be in the right headspace for that and be able to adjust quickly, is going to be important for us. But I'd agree that backline is the place right now more for actual team setup, because we are missing those marking defenders more than we are the forwards at the moment, even if the forwards aren't necessarily doing perfectly for the marks inside 50. Just actual player-wise, I think he slots into a spot down back better as far as the full squad.
Yeah, I probably tend to agree in terms of need. I think he's more needed down back. One thing I will say, though, is I really hope he cleans up those 15-metre passes, because he seems to be doing one of those each week. But I forgive him because, he's only played a handful of games, and hopefully he learns from that. But, he's had a couple of moments that I'm sure he'd want to relive. But apart from that, he's got really positive signs. I mean, all the commentators were talking him up, and even a couple of moments in the forward line, some players would just fly for everything, but he kind of had the footy IQ to know when to go and when not to go, if that makes sense. Like, he sort of read when his teammates were in a better position, and if he'd gone up, he would have just spoiled the ball. And then that mark that he did take was just so well read as well. So I do think he's got a bit of footy IQ behind him. Just at the moment, it seems to be more so when he doesn't have the ball, but I'm sure he will tidy that up. He does look like a player. So on that, keeping him in the back line, can continue the backline discussion. And Daryl here has also mentioned Hasty, who probably worth a mention as well. He took a really gutsy mark late in the last quarter as well. I think it was the last quarter. But yeah, I sort of like how he's developing playing in the seniors, and I think he needs to keep playing in the seniors, but keen to hear your thoughts on Hasty and what you've liked or maybe not liked from his games so far?
Based on like what I was talking about earlier with Mason Wood swinging forward, Hunter Clark went to half back. And I think that could leave a spot for Hasty to develop a little bit on the wing. I know we've got Ari as well, who has been playing wing in VFL. So that makes it tough because we've got too many guys who are trying to play the same position because Wilson is fit again now as well. So that it's a tough decision because, you want to develop these guys like Hasty. But you also want to develop the other guys that are playing the same spot. And then we've got, guys like Hunter Clark who are sort of not, I wouldn't call Hunter Clark a veteran, but he's been around for long enough. Midfielder, he's obviously going to halfback in such a pivotal time in the game. I thought he was pretty good when he went there, to be honest. So I wouldn't mind seeing him take that position a little bit more often. And then the team defense as well, I thought stepped up. The first quarter, we were kind of all over the place. They were getting out the back. They were just tearing through our zone. And Bailey Fritsch was everywhere. And he didn't have a specific opponent. They were swapping it around quite a lot, trying to figure out what was going to be best. I don't know exactly what they stuck with, but he had virtually no impact in the second half of the game. He nearly won it himself in the first quarter and blew us out straight away. He could have had 5 or at least four goals in the first quarter. So I think the team effort to not only shut him down one-on-one, but to get over to the contest when they started looking for him more often was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that wasn't much fun to watch in that first quarter there as they were messing around. And we definitely lost a lot more one-on-ones than I'm used to us seeing. Even stats-wise, Wilkie lost the 2 contested one-on-ones, and it's pretty rare to see him even lose the 1. But I'm willing to take that as a bit of a one-off, although I will not be looking forward to that if it continues, because this week we're up against Larky coming back into the squad. And as much as I respect what Melksham's done this year, and Fritsch is in a bit of form, they're not the same as a Larky or what Larky can be in a good squad. So hoping we can hold on there. And I agree that Hasty's come around a lot in the last couple of weeks, particularly because I think after his first game, we could see he was committed, but he wasn't in the right headspace or not quite ready for the speed. So you don't get that speed in the VFL. You need to get it in the full game. So he's been much better the last couple of weeks, being more ready to hit the ground running.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely liked his growth the last few weeks, and just on losing those contested marks, it was probably like we touched on Wilkie, but it was the first time I'd really seen Stocker get beaten as well. It was like he wasn't the right matchup for Fritsch, but then it was also like he didn't really have a proper matchup. I don't even feel like he handled Melksham all that well. But then in the last, as I said, every player had their moments, and he had a crucial one sort of right on the goal line that sort of his presence just stopped, I think it was Petty, from taking the mark. So, yeah, they all sort of just had their little moments that went a long way to us winning the game. And I think there might have been another one where he managed to sort of even the contest. But prior to that, it was a bit strange to see the back line kind of have their colours lowered, and I wasn't really expecting it against a forward line like Melbourne. So that's probably where my frustration was growing, because it was just out of the blue, if you like. So, and that's not to say that those players weren't in good form, but I just thought that our back line was capable of matching them. So it'll be interesting this week with Larky back. Probably a good way to lead into some key matchups. And is it a no-brainer for you? Do you just put Wilkie straight to him? What do you think we do?
Yeah, I reckon so. I reckon that's the go. It'll be curious what they do with Comben. I believe he played at least part of the game as a forward last week for the Roos, and that was a rubbish decision. Anyway, so if they stick with it, he's got the height to maybe deal with a Caminiti. If they put him down back because he's their only good backman, then it's a pretty easy Wilkie to Larky for me.
Yeah, I think that's just the no-brainer. I don't know. It depends if he plays stay at home or not. Because I feel like if he stays at home, Caminiti's probably better. But if he starts getting on the lead and so on, Wilkie's probably a better matchup. I think Wilkie's the safe option. But if I look at their lineup, or if you could bring the lineup up there. They've got him at centre half forward. They've got Darling, of course. So yeah, Darling's more likely to be the stay at home. So I would say that Wilkie would be probably the preferable matchup.
Yeah, and I think it'll be curious what they do this week, but they've still been really fighting with Sherry out of the team, and Darling's been having to play a lot of ruck in that forward line, but even in the centre. So putting someone like Caminiti there, who's had a little bit more ruck experience, if worse comes to worse, might just mean where there's a bit less shenanigans as far as switching over goes in that space.
Yeah, I'm also wondering if they'll even put Tauru on Darling for a period purely just for the experience. Because, I mean, he had to match up on Cameron a couple of weeks back, so that was an experience. So, and I mean, Darling's sort of pushing towards the end of his career. He's probably a better matchup for Caminiti, but I wouldn't actually mind seeing Tauru just take him at times, because these last few weeks for mine are all about experimenting and experience and sort of, throwing the magnets around a little bit, I suppose, and maybe that is why we had Caminiti play forward again. Maybe the coaches thought what we did and what I did, that their forward line, we had them matched, so we threw Caminiti forward. I don't know. I just like that we did make the move back when we realised it wasn't working. In saying that, though, we did kick the first goal, which I was pretty rapt for him because I think he likes to kick a goal, and now he's been playing in the back line, so he doesn't get that chance as often. Before we get too stuck into the Oppo view, I believe we have our question time. So, Evan, did you want to hit us up with your question?
Yeah, I had a quick thought first that I wasn't able to turn into a question. But I just wanted to bring up, looking at the ladder and the teams we're around, I am so much happier now with where we sit compared to Essendon for one reason, and it's that almost every single player that we've played this year that's on our young list, I can still see being in the squad in the next 2 years. Whereas Essendon, with all their injury troubles, have played 14 debutants now, I think. Mm-hmm. And you'd imagine...
We've got another one this week as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you reckon half of them probably aren't going to be in the squad, and they've had to give 8, 9, 10 games to multiple players that are basically fill-ins. Whereas we can look at our whole season and go, that is 20 extra games to your Windies, and Garcia's got another 10 sort of thing as well. So that's looking really positive to me. I think we were talking about this beforehand, but I thought I'd mention it now since I think we're all disappearing at different times the next little while. Looks like Saints are out of finals contention. I think we've probably known that for a while. So who is the team that we can agree to sort of not support, but back in the finals race? It's clearly not Geelong. It's clearly not the Pies. Who do we agree we can back with a little bit of support for the final series?
Anyone with like limited recent success? Like I'm a bit not biased, but I like Collingwood because I've got family and close friends that go for Collingwood. So keeping them out of it, probably not Brisbane or Geelong. Maybe Hawthorn's kind of in the middle, like I don't really mind. So that leaves Gold Coast, Freo, GWS and Adelaide out of the current top 8, with the Bulldogs being the only other possible option, who I would be happy to see do well. So, yeah, I don't think I could pick one. Yeah, just someone who hasn't, not an underdog, but who hasn't had success in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it's always a tough one. I'm very one-eyed, so I always struggle come the finals time if we're not playing, which is a regularity. So I always find it hard. And then especially come grand final day, I just, I can't. I just hate watching whoever wins. It hurts. So it's trying to pick the team that I feel will hurt the least to watch, if that makes sense. So it's often an interstate team just because I don't have to deal with the fans because I'm a bit harsh and I get jealous and I just don't like seeing any other person happy when I haven't experienced it, which is pretty silly and stupid as a Saints supporter. I should be used to it by now, but I think that's why I hate it so much because I just want it so badly, and whenever anyone else gets it, I'm like, it's not fair. You haven't had to go through what I've had to go through. So even when the Dogs won, I just could not be happy for them because it was like, oh, so you get your second flag, and here I am, like, yeah. So I get all salty and I can't deal. So I'll probably pick a team like the Giants just because I don't know anyone who goes for them, and I actually don't mind the Giants. I think they've got an exciting style, and I'm probably one of few who actually likes Toby Green, his sort of dirty antics aside, the way he plays, and I even liked his little comment at halftime. But I don't know. I don't mind a little bit of cheekiness and a bit of sledging, but I think he needs to get rid of the dirty stuff. But yeah, I think if I had to pick a team, it's probably the Giants. But
yeah, I think Giants probably the most fun to watch out of that lot. I did like Jan's comment, which is in line with what you were saying there of nobody, which is, yeah, that's spot on. We're full on one-eyed. As far as I go, I want the Suns to get through, specifically because they're the only footy team with a worse winning percentage than us. So it feels like not, stepping up to another squad there. I'm going for, the rung below. So could never go for Carlton or someone because just jumping from 1 to, is it 16 or so premierships? That feels like cheating.
Yeah.
But the Suns, they're right there below us.
Fair enough. Tough question, Evan, because until the Saints win one, I'm not going to be happy for anyone else. I'm just going to put it right there. It's the truth. Yeah, so basically, one day it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But back on track, we'll discuss the Oppo view now, and it just I feel like it would be typical Saints to do what we did against the D's, the biggest comeback. The Roos are coming off 100-point thumping. I don't want to say I already have. It would be so St Kilda to go and lose this game, but no, I think that we just need to do what we did that last quarter, take it in to this game against the Roos. They do have some quality players on their list, despite their ladder position and where they've been the last few years, particularly in their midfield. I think we all rate LDU, and he's really strong in there. But to me, they just don't have the ability to play 4 quarters, and they don't know how to win, essentially, which I was sort of saying the same thing about us. I thought it was quite funny because we don't know how to win, but we can come from 46 points down and win. So you never know what you're going to get with the Saints. It always keeps it interesting. But surely we get this done. But is there any sort of key matchup or position on the ground that you're maybe worried about, that we need to shut down, their style of play? Honestly, I just feel like they don't get it together for long enough. I think they look like they're improving in patches, but they're just incapable of playing for a long stretch, which, again, is quite funny considering we just played 1 quarter of footy and won the game. So, interested to get your take going into this game against the Roos.
I think the main thing for North is that they're very on again, off again, in that they're, occasionally they'll be in the game and they'll be super competitive like they drew with Brisbane and they only lost to Freo by a goal, but then they get beaten by 80 points, 70 points, 60 points. And it's like, well, what are we seeing in these close games, but why aren't we seeing it any other time? So, there's not, I can't say let's hope it's not one of those games because there's more to it than that. Because they've obviously got dangerous players. Nick Larkey's back in the side. He kicked 5 goals in the first quarter, I think, against the Bulldogs when he got injured, and he was kicking goals still injured. So, that's going to be a task for Wilkie probably, like we spoke about, but also the team defence. And I also really like Paul Curtis. I think he's had a great season. If it wasn't interrupted by the suspension earlier on, he could have still been All-Australian running like he was after probably 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. That suspension really threw him off. I think you could really see last week that the back line was the major issue that they had there, because the forward line was still really trying. But when you give away 11 goals to Cameron, there's not much you can do to outscore that. And I was watching some footage of their back line really overcommitting up the ground and letting Geelong get over the back really quickly. And that's probably something we can try and punish as well, where, Daniel is doing a turnover up the ground and they're not getting back. They're not doing a full-fledged team defense there. So making sure maybe this is a week where Sharman gets a bag sort of thing, because he's able to sit out back a little bit, not like be a goal snake, but they're clearly not respecting one-on-one defense. So that's definitely something we can try and make the most of. That I imagine they'll put Charlie Comben down back again, who's their primary defender this year, but I still reckon that's their weak spot that we can try to make most of.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that, Larky's your probably your biggest concern. And I think like Caleb Daniel's quite good at playing that sort of halfback, creative sort of player. Like, I feel like he's had a pretty consistent year, but there's no one that really threatens me enough. Even with that midfield, the way that we've been playing, and I feel like we've got a better rotation going. We're not just relying on your Steeles and McRae's anymore. We've got a few youngsters coming in and really holding their own. And I'm really looking forward to Max Hall having another really solid game. And I agree. I reckon there's someone that can definitely kick a bag, and I'm going to call it as Higgins. I'm going to say it's time for a 5-goal haul from Higgins. That'd be nice to just cap off his year. Had a little quiet patch. Obviously came out with 4 goals on the weekend, and I reckon he can continue that and kick a nice bag of 5. So that would be nice. But yeah, I feel like if we just maintain the pressure, I think that's been probably something I've said every week, but when we're bringing the pressure, that's when we're playing our best footy. I think that's our style, and people like to say that we're not attacking and we're boring, but I disagree. Like, when we get our game going, and as we saw in the last quarter, like, that was just the most exciting style of footy that you'll see. I mean, nine goals in a quarter, and I know obviously people will say we struggle to kick that in a game, but I don't think that's our intention. I don't think we want to play slow. I just think the players need to back themselves and get that confidence, and I'm really hoping that this weekend's game sort of does that, and we can really step forward and in that direction now and get that self-belief, because I really think that plays a big part in how you play, if that makes sense. So I think we'll all probably be tipping the Saints this week. So I guess on that, like, what's your key to winning this game, and are you thinking it's a big one, or are we going to come out sort of Saints fashion? Are the Roos going to turn it up like they are capable, as we touched on? How do you sort of think this game pans out?
Yeah, I'm expecting a response from the Roos specifically. No one wants to lose by 100 points. I was trying to find something on Simpkin. I'm not sure if he's injured, but to drop your captain is always a big statement. And bring back Wardlaw into the middle there, who, is a contested bull when he's out there. Like, he is scary. They've done that. That's a big change, even though it's a 1-for-1 to take your captain out to refresh the midfield. I'm expecting a lot more drive from them this week. That being said, we were talking last week about not whether to tank, but do we aim for close losses in a way? And I said, no, we try to win to get that experience of how do you win a game of footy. And I specifically used North as a reference, being like, they don't really know how to win a game. They've got all the talent, but they've spent so many games losing by substantial margins that, you know, they've got players that have played 20 games and lost all but 1 or 2. And now we can really confidently say Taru's had that winning feeling. All those young players have gone, no, we can kick 9 goals in a quarter. Nothing's out of stretch. So that's the perfect game for a young squad. And I hope that we keep that ball moving and match their midfield with Hall, Windy and Naz, and just keep the ball rolling for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think for us, the main thing should be what we can take away from the last quarter specifically, you know, aside from, like you mentioned, we can kick this many goals, is that we need to use the middle of the ground more. I think, who was it? Can't remember who it was specifically that mentioned it during the week, but someone, it might have been Luke Hodge, said that we were just playing between the train tracks the whole quarter. That was it. We didn't go out to the wing. We didn't go out to the far wing. Either wing, we didn't play. We just went through the middle. We went out and came back in, or we went direct to goal. You know, a lot of center clearance helps with that. But yeah, I think we need to use the guts more. We've been too prone to not knowing what to do with the ball and just going, oh, well, I'll kick it long down a wing, which we were doing that in the first 3 quarters on the weekend. So I think a change needs to be made in not the style of play, but the way we execute it. So a little bit more dangerous, fast paced, take the game on, and I think North won't be able to keep up.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, as Jan touched on, start well for a change. Agreed. What is with our slow starts? And then just very quickly, I just wanted to say we didn't really discuss the sub, and I kind of like discussing who would be the sub as much as I don't love the sub. But I just wanted to say that it's time for Boxall to just get a full game, even if it means Zachy Jones is back to being his renowned position as sub. Sorry, Zach. If it means that Boxall gets a full game, that's what I'd like to see. So, yeah, just quickly, did you have any thoughts on the sub? I guess who you want to see as sub?
It's tough because we've got the extended bench, so we're speculating ins and outs plus sub. But based on Boxall's performance last week, I would prefer to see him in the main squad over Jones. So it's a tough call because you want someone who's going to come in and have impact. So you don't really want a Max Heath type who, you know, can only play 1 or 2 positions on the ground. Look, I'm not sure. I think I would be more inclined to say someone like Burns or Travalia if he came in, because they're sort of not risk sub players, but they're more likely to and have played that role before.
Yeah. I think I described Jones during the game as it's like a restaurant where you know there's a 1 in 4 chance that you're going to get food poisoning, and you know it's going to close down in 2 years. So what's the point?
That's good.
So I'm happy moving on from him, even though sometimes it's delicious, but you're going to have bad luck. How many weeks has Garcia been out for? Is 4 or so?
3 or 4, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe 3
or less.
I could think of him being the sub purely because we've got a couple of names in there, and I wouldn't want him to do, you know, a hamstring because he's a bit undercooked. But that would be the only thought there. Other effort, but only because we needed a bit more speed against a small side. But there's no one I'd really want to see in that space.
Yeah. Well, like Two Bob Shark has said, the sub will probably be gone next season, which would be nice. So I guess watch this space. But yeah, it's looking like there's a good chance it will go. So yeah, I don't think anyone is loving the sub, including the players. I'll get your margins, and while we do that, I'll just throw up this comment because I like it.
Nice.
Good
I
one
like
from
that.
everyone.
I think interestingly, Mason Wood has been put forward. We take this with a grain of salt, but that looks like they've swapped it around a little bit, which is positive. And based on last week, I think I put down Saints by 38 and Dash Rising Star nomination. So that's what Hasty Taru is eligible for that. Travalia, if he plays. Boxall is still eligible for that too. So one of those guys. Or second prediction is Rowan Marshall has a massive game playing on Bryn Teakle. So 25 touches and 2 or 3 goals or something like that. Just a massive Rowan Marshall game where he dominates.
Nice. Yep. I'd pay to see that just by itself.
Well, you are paying to see it if you're going to the game.
I am paid to see that. Yes, yeah. So it's one of the few that I can make it into Melbourne for. So hopefully they put on a good show. So and it's always a good sign. I'm tipping the Saints up by 20, I reckon. Easy game. No, not easy game. I won't say that.
Easy game. Oh my God.
A game that puts a little bit of
it.
pressure on Clarko. And one of our forwards kicks a bag of 6 or 7.
Oh,
that's
unreal.
Big.
That would be
That's real
lovely.
Big.
Yeah. I like that. It's a good way to finish. I'm going to say it's the Saints by 44 on the back of Higgins' 5 goals. And I would love Marshall to have a ripper because I think he's due and he deserves one. I really like the way he goes about it. He always puts in 100% whether he's having a good game or not. So I'd really love to see him have a good one. Maybe he can push forward and kick a couple of goals too. That would be nice. So, 44 points. Come on, Saints. And hopefully everyone can get down. It is our last home game for the year. So, especially off the back of that really inspiring win, get down and cheer on the boys and get us over the line against the Roos on Sunday. It's a little bit earlier too. So, don't head down at 4:40 or you'll miss the game. But thank you, everyone.
Just force a habit.
Yeah, exactly. But thanks as always for tuning in, all your comments, and as always to Evan and Ollie, it's always a really fun, good chat, and especially after a win for a change, which was lovely. So, thank you all. Enjoy tonight's game; should be a good one, and go Saints.
Go Saints.
Go Saints.